The other one is more relevant to the unitary plan, I think, and this is where the Act may be able to help if there are some interests that need to be managed. So the Auditor-General can grant a declaration enabling a member or members with a financial interest to participate in a particular matter on either of two grounds. One is that if the prohibition against discussion and voting were to apply, that would impede the local authority's business. The second is that it would basically be in the public interest that the rule not apply. So the procedure for either of those is a written application in advance by the member or the council on the member's behalf. So this would follow the process that Catherine has offered, where members work through what their interests are and how they might be managed. And we're happy to be, to be part of that process as necessary. We would need detailed information to understand what the financial interest is and what the nature of the decision is to be made, and how that decision might affect the member's financial interest. In terms of the two grounds, the business impeded ground, this has applied in the past where a significant number of councillors have a financial interest, and so basically a large number of councillors can't take part in discussion and voting on a significant matter, and only a small number of councillors can take part. So in that situation, we
will co-opt you. How about that?
In that situation, the rule could be seen to be unduly distorting the way the council could do business, because only, say, a small number of members could take part. And I think the example here was actually an Auckland example around owning shares in Auckland Airport, where a number of councillors own shares in the Auckland Airport. The council had a strategic decision to be made about its shareholding. It was considered, and I think we gave the declaration that it would be, the council's business would be impeded if they all couldn't take part in that decision. The other ground that is a bit more also potentially relevant is the public interest ground, and this is where we need to weigh the risk, weigh the benefit of the members with the financial interest participating against the risk that those financial interests could affect the decision or the outcome. So considerations here are whether the member has particular expertise that they bring to the table that would otherwise be lacking. There's a representation issue, whether the people that that member represents would be adequately represented if the member couldn't participate, and whether the matter is so important that it justifies the involvement of all of the members around the table, whether they have financial interests or not. And you may see that the unitary plan is of that nature. So just in terms of some examples of declarations we've given under this ground, one that was some time ago, a councillor on the Far North District Council was a very keen advocate for building a bridge across the Hokianga Harbour, which was an idea of some years ago. He owned land on one side of the harbour that could potentially benefit if the bridge was built. He had stood on an electoral platform of being a very strong proponent for the bridge, and then when he got onto the council, he realised that he couldn't actually deliver on that platform because he had a financial interest in the proposed bridge. But we said in that situation, when he applied for a declaration, that we were comfortable giving a declaration largely because of that representation issue, that he had strongly stood on that platform, and we thought it was important that the people, he could give voice to the people who had elected him. The other one that Councillor Casey mentioned is Councillor Hewitt. That's a more recent one in the Hawke's Bay, member of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council, in the context of the council's decision making about the Ruataniwha water scheme. In that case, the council is going through the final stages as to whether to put its $80 million investment into the scheme, and there are a series of final conditions to be met that they are now voting on. The councillor owns some land that is in one of the areas that is potentially going to be irrigated by the scheme. It's not a large bit of land, and we we decided that the councillor did have a financial interest in the decision to invest in the water scheme, but it was unclear how big that financial interest was. And the councillor made the case, and the council on her behalf, that this matter was so significant for the whole Hawke's Bay region that all elected members should be able to take part, and we accepted that, so we gave a declaration in that case. So in terms of declarations and exemptions, these ways that the Act, the strict rules in the Act can be made to work, we are happy to receive applications and work with members and council staff on these. It's certainly helpful if timing is tight, that we get as much information in advance as possible. And just to recap, our guidance publications are available. There's a series of frequently asked questions in Part 6 of the guidance that is quite helpful around associations with other bodies and, non-financial conflicts of interest as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I've got Councillor Casey.
Right back near the beginning, you talked about conflict of interest having to be declared at committees and council meetings. My question relates to workshops, because we will be having at least one behind closed doors workshop, be it high level or otherwise.
We're not workshopping any of this.
I've got one in my diary for next week.
Oh, that's just.
And I think we discussed it earlier, and it was high level, not to worry about it.
That's just the discussion.
So and the question stands, so we'll get an answer
we're
on
not
that. But
having
just
any
to be
workshops on the
clear,
unitary
so
plan?
we're not running workshops on that.
Cool.
We're having a briefing, which is what everyone's asked for. We're having a content briefing on Wednesday.
No, the briefing, that's what I mean. Is the briefing a workshop? Is the briefing
no.
something we have to declare interests at? Or can we go in there and say whatever we like about whatever we like, because it's not a committee or a full meeting?
Well,
So I was
yeah.
asking the Auditor General's office, because it was
no.
he who said it.
I've just got lots of yeses around the room, and that's why I'm just going, no, let's just actually hear the advice.
It's a bit of a grey area, actually, around workshops. I think the wording of the Act is that a member shall not vote on or take part in discussion of any matter before the governing body or before the committee in which he or she has a financial interest. So the question, I guess, is whether the workshop is a meeting of the governing body or of a committee, or whether it's something else again. And I think we've taken the view, and I'm not sure whether this is in our guidance, that good practice would require that conflicts be declared at any meeting which involves the governing body or a committee, whether it's a formal council meeting or not.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. I've got Councillor Cooper and then Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think just going back to the local alcohol plan, and it wasn't clear for me around, and I had a conflict, and I wasn't sure if I was to come to workshops or not. I came to a workshop, and the next thing I know, I got an email from our lawyers requested by one of the councillors, and they were going to announce it all in public in front of everybody, so I just didn't come to the meeting. So it was pretty clear that it was considered by our lawyers that a workshop was the same as a duly constituted meeting in that regard, so I didn't go to any more of those at all, a workshop or anything. So for me, that answers that question. Unless it's been managed somehow or it's been declared, and you can't, I don't know. It's just, yeah, I came down on high from that one, very heavy-handed, out of the blue one for me.
Yes, because I think a workshop, a workshop is obviously still a meeting, isn't it? But it's certain rules don't apply as long as no decisions or resolutions are made.
Well, that wasn't the case in this one. I was allowed to come even to a workshop and just sit there, so.
I think it's
And the same for councillor Close, so.
So maybe that's one of those, as we meet on an individual basis and get absolute clarity on the conflicts, the genuine conflicts, and how to manage them. I think it'll be also good just to be clear.
Before Catherine was the boss.
what the issue is at a briefing, which I wouldn't imagine there's a huge amount of opportunity for great debate and discussion. Everything else after that are meetings. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. I actually made a personal submission about the sites and places of value for Mana Whenua, and that was the only part of the unitary plan that I made a submission. But I don't really believe that I haven't got a personal interest other than it's really very in common with the public. I don't really believe I have a real personal issue there, and I know that the Maori Statutory Board put in, I believe...
Put no personal submission in?
No, the Maori Statutory Board, whether it was personal or not, they actually put in a submission to the unitary plan, and yet some of those members of the Maori Statutory Board actually sat on the unitary plan.
So, Councillor, I think we could all now go around the table and talk about our different conflicts. My advice is very clearly your conflicts and the issues that arise for you, you need to meet with our staff and go through those with our lawyers, as will each member of this, as will the Independent Māori Statutory Board. It's not for us to point out other people's conflicts, perceived or real, and we need to deal with our own, and I'm very clear about that. But you do need to sit with our legal team and go through anything that may be a possible conflict of interest, including people who've put in submissions. So, our staff and our legal team are there to advise fully on this, and I think it would be somewhat derelict in our duty for us not to fully participate in that, as well as fill out our declarations of interest, which are then available. So my advice is to do that. Councillor Casey, did you?
Yeah, no, I just want to be clear, because at workshops we have never asked participants to declare interest. Are you saying that that's what should happen? At workshops, briefings, anything that's not a formal meeting that's minuted. So you're saying that we should have that declaration of interest at workshops and briefings as well?
I would, yeah, well, in terms of transparency, it's always best, the requirement is if you have a financial conflict of interest, you need to declare that at a meeting. So it comes down to, is a workshop a meeting? And I would say it is a meeting, even if it's not a formal, a workshop is a type of meeting, so yes.
And does it only relate to financial conflicts of interest? You said the word financial, but I would have thought any conflict of interest should be declared at such a time.
Yeah, non-financial as well. The Act, Members' Interest Act, requires financial interest to be declared, but good practice would require non-financial as well.
Rule of thumb, just if we do feel that there's any interest, is to declare it to your colleagues. Bottom line, it's not a fault, it's not a negative, it simply exists and needs to be named, and then we move on. And then, if need be, stand aside.
And recorded?
The Members' Interest Act requires a declaration to be recorded in the minutes. So if there are no minutes, that's going to be a problem.
So can I just seek the advice of the Auditor General's Office on that? Because if we're asking people to declare and there is a declaration, then it needs to be recorded.
Councillor Casey, I don't want to put our Audit Office on the spot, and this is a side issue that's not actually related to the topic in hand. Yeah, but hang on. This is not kind of free-for-all with the Audit Office. This is us perhaps saying to Marguerite or Phil Wilson or our democracy staff, can you follow up the issue of the right way for us to address this at workshops? I don't think we could do it on the hoof now.
No hoofing.
Okay. Any other questions? Member Tyke.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. Tēnā koe. This might sound bizarre, but I think I need to ask it. Council has made submissions and given evidence on the plan endorsed by the councillors. Is that a conflict?
No. Council has a specific role under the legislation, is required to participate and provide evidence to the panel, which is what it's done.
Thank you.
Same with the IMSB.
Okay. Any other questions for our audit team? Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to leave this to the end, but I want to pose to you, I mean, what we are all doing is trying to work our way through this quietly, respectfully, and within the complexities of outdated legislation. I always joke each year that we set an annual plan that we all have conflict because our rates will go up or down, but that's just the reality of the situation. My question relates to the process from here on in, because it's really important to me that there is complete confidence and there can be no misunderstanding. I took some advice in and around the terms of reference on the Auckland Development Committee, and technically the work of the Auckland Development Committee as regards the unitary plan is complete as soon as the AHP report back.